The first speaker tonight is someone who President Garassi and I have come to know through the years. His name is Dr. Joseph Salvo. Dr. Salvo is the director of the Population Division of the New York City Department of City Planning. The Population Division serves as the city's in-house demographic consultant, providing expertise for a whole host of applications involving assessments of need, program planning and targeting, and policy formulation. This, of course, includes the development of population estimates and projection for infrastructure and capital planning, such as projections for a Plan New York City, the long-term sustainability plan for the city of New York. It's good to realize that New York City is sustainable in the future. The division is also working closely with the Census Bureau on the technical preparation for the 2010 census, which is just around the corner, and evaluation of the New American Community Survey. Dr. Salvo's publications are in the areas of decennial census issues, survey methods, and the residential settlement of immigrants. He currently serves on the Census Advisory Committee of Professional Associations and is a former president of the Association of Public Data Users. Dr. Salvo received MA and PhD degrees from Fordham University. He's a recipient of the Sloan Public Service Award from the Fund for the City of New York and a fellow of the American Statistical Association. Dr. Salvo, welcome to Wagner College and to Staten Island. He tells me he has an hour and a half to get home tonight. He lives in New York City, but I think at the top of the Bronx. All right. And Dr. Salvo has prepared a slide PowerPoint projection regarding the topic. And when he's through, he has a very competent deputy here in Dr. Frank Vardy, who might participate in the question and answer period if he sees fit. Let me introduce to all of you Dr. Joseph Salvo.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I very much like to give these presentations because frankly, there's a lot that demography can offer as a basis for understanding issues. The issue is about immigrants and their powering or their gaining foothold in government. Before we can discuss such an issue, you need to have a basis. You need to understand the immigrant picture of New York, how it's changing, or what I call the immigrant dynamic. There are about 5 or 6 points that I'm going to leave you with today. Those 5 or 6 points can serve as a basis for discussion. As I go through these points, I would be very happy if you would jot down a question or two, things that might be of interest. Because to be honest, Frank and I do these presentations because we learn a lot from the audience about what's on the minds of people who are asking the questions that need to be asked about policy, for example, about programs. Each of you has a perspective that you developed from your everyday experiences, from walking the streets of Staten Island, from walking the streets of New York. Your job is to compare your own individual perspectives to what I'm going to show you, reality test it, because I have what is called a representative sample. Those of you in statistics know what I mean, if you had such a class. It is essentially a picture based upon what we think is a representative sample, or that is a real kind of on-the-ground picture of what's happening in New York. The first thing that I want to address, the 5 boroughs, I just want to make sure everybody knows. You know, the Bronx is the only borough attached to mainland United States. Everybody knows that. You live in Staten Island, so you'll know that. People in Brooklyn and Queens frequently don't know that. And Brooklyn and Queens is part of Long Island, but we won't say that. All right, first thing I want to talk to you about is the components of population change, all right? Most people view the population of the city of New York this way. You got this big hulk, and every year you add a piece to it, all right? In 1980, the population of the city was not that substantial, actually, by current standards. It was 7,072,000. In 1990, the population was 7.3 million. In 2000, finally, the city officially went over the 8 million mark. In reality, back in 1970, had we taken into account the under-enumeration that took place in the census, the city actually had about 8 million, right around 8 million people. But officially, we hit the 8 million mark in 2000. We are now at 8.3, actually, it's not up here, but 2007 is 8,310,212, but we was counting exactly. You can see the population is on a growth trend, okay? We've added about 300,000 people. Our projection for the mayor's sustainability plan is 9.2 million, over 9.2 million in the year 2035. Now, of course, this is a long-term projection. Demographers are not suffering from the beating that economists are currently taking, but nonetheless, we are susceptible to all kinds of problems. As you know, I do not have a crystal ball. Some people claim that I do, but I really don't. But this is how you view the population. It's kind of this big hulk and you add to it. That is not reality. This is reality. New York City has, in the first 7 years of this decade, lost over 800,000 people through domestic migration. That is 800,000 more have left for the 50 states than have come in from the 50 states, okay? We have shed people domestically. We gain a big chunk of it back, over 600,000, through immigration. Our net change, you see that third bar up from the bottom, the orange one, is that we actually have a net loss through migration. It is about 200,000 people. So this exchange is the reality of what happens in New York. Now, why do we care about this? Because this explains why, and people say to me, why don't those people learn English? How come I go on the subway? Well, I guess what do you have here, the SIRT? Is that what it's called? Okay. It's a cute, actually. I've been on it. So when you listen, you hear people speak other languages all the time. And people say to me, you guys say you offer 50,000 seats for English. Eventually, everybody's going to learn it, right? And eventually, more people will speak English on the subway. No, that's not the way it works. People come and go in huge numbers in the neighborhoods of New York. And what that means is that the people who provide those services, the people who provide health services, education services, their job will never end. In effect, because new people are showing up every day and people are leaving every day. So you might say, New York's a safe city. How could we lose 800,000 people due to domestic migration? There's something wrong with that. What I am here to tell you today is not only is there nothing wrong with that, that is the sign of a dynamic and healthy place. If I take you today to Cleveland, if I take you to Cincinnati, to Buffalo, Detroit, they don't have that much out-migration per se, okay? People have left. People are still leaving. They don't have these huge flows. They're not dynamic like New York. Dynamism, this is what it is. People coming and going on a constant basis. People who leave are doing better than people who come in. Well, duh. The fact of the matter is, that's why people come to New York. Opportunities that we provide here are very attractive to immigrants. So now, if you take that net migration loss, the orange bar, third up from the bottom, and you combine that with natural increase, which is the balance of births and deaths, we have had more than 400,000 more births than deaths in the city of New York in this period. It results in a net increase in population. This is how the population changes, not the previous chart I showed you. This is the dynamic, and this is what makes New York a really special place, and why we have a constant injection of energy into the city. So that's one thing I want to leave you with. Another thing I want to leave you with. The secondary effects of immigration. 53% of the births in the city of New York are to foreign-born women. If you add dad in, it's more than 6 out of every 10 births. Either mom or dad are foreign-born. 5 countries account for more than a quarter of all the births in New York City. And you see Mexico, the Dominican Republic, China, Jamaica, and Ecuador. Mexico is now #1 in births among foreign-born groups. Tells us something about their presence in the city. Generally, you cannot hide a birth. One of the ways that we figure out who's here is by looking at the number of births, because we can associate the number of births with a population on the ground, so to speak, not as a result of some survey. So we develop estimates of the population that we think is really here, including undocumented this way.